All right, we're getting started today with Bhagavad Gita and continuing with chapter 18. So, good stuff here. But before we begin, let's have a little meditation time. So take a time to just relax and take a deep breath. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Krishnam Sharanam Mama, Shri Krishnam Sharanam Mama. So the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, text number 36, I believe it is. Let me just check. Yes, 36. Krishna is talking now about just sort of breaking down how different aspects of life and what the things that really matter, the things that make for a good, happy life. Just trying to show us the difference between different qualities in ourselves, different qualities of life. So here he's now talking about happiness. He says, "Now please hear from me about the three kinds of happiness which the conditioned soul enjoys, and by which he sometimes comes to the end of all distress." Let's read that part again. The three kinds of happiness which the conditioned soul enjoys. So, conditioned soul means all of us who are conditioned, right, by our upbringing, our life experiences and all of that, and by which he sometimes comes to the end of all distress. So, I'll read the rest as well and then come back to this part, the end of all distress. That which in the beginning may be just like poison, but at the end is just like nectar, and which awakens one to self-realization, is said to be happiness in the mode of goodness. I know it's a mouthful. Hold on a minute. Let's read that again. That which in the beginning may be just like poison, may feel difficult, may feel cumbersome, may feel, oh, it's not so pleasing or pleasurable. But at the end is just like nectar, right? And which awakens one to self-realization. So again, there's a series of distinctions here. There are things that seem difficult in the beginning, but which become sweet and wonderful as you go along. Any kind of a skill that you learn, from learning to run, to learning to dance, learning to ride a bicycle, any skill that you learn does seem difficult in the beginning. And it becomes enjoyable like nectar as you go along, right? So he makes a further distinction. It's not just about some skill like that. He says, which maybe feel like poison in the beginning, but in the end is just like nectar, and which awakens one to self-realization, is said to be happiness in the mode of goodness. All right, so that really makes it clear. That which awakens one to self-realization, that is happiness in the mode of goodness. See, we've all been pursuing happiness. And I think even it's in the American Constitution, the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. Is that right? And we pursue happiness, but we never seem to find it. We never seem to get it. And you may want to stop and ask yourself why. No matter how much I'm pursuing happiness, it's running away from me. The more I pursue it, the more it eludes me. It's almost like I got it. I just got this new house, this new car, this new thing that I've always wanted, this new partner that I've always wanted. And it feels so amazing right now. It feels wonderful. And then it slips out of my hands. It no longer feels that way. Now it feels ordinary. Now it feels mundane. Now it feels, and I'm looking for the next thing now. That's been the cycle for most of us. In fact, the next verse actually talks about that. That happiness which is derived from contact of the senses with their objects, and which appears like nectar at first, but poison at the end, is said to be of the nature of passion, or rajogun, the mode of passion. Now, he's not talking about passion as being passionate. It's a rough translation, the word rajas, to try and give us an idea of the state of consciousness in which we live. So it's being passionate in our lives, doing. That's sort of like the mode of passion. And then more peaceful is the mode of goodness, and more lazy is the mode of ignorance. That might be just a simple way to tell you. So it's really referring to a state of mind or a state of consciousness. And from that perspective, let's read this again. That happiness which is derived from contact of the senses with their objects, and which appears like nectar at first but poison at the end, is said to be of the nature of passion. Now, please examine your life. This is for all of us, for me, for you, for all of us. Examine your life and tell me how much of what you do is based upon things that give you pleasure, things that happiness derived from contact of the senses with their objects, the object of the senses, right? You feel like eating something. You eat something that is pleasurable to you. You want to be with someone who is good company to you. You want to buy things that feel good to you. All of that is about pleasuring yourself, about giving yourself happiness through the things of the world, through the objects of desire, whatever they might be. And that's what we live for. Until we realize that again and again and again I have tried these things and they haven't given me the pleasure that I wanted. They haven't given me the satisfaction. They've given me some pleasure, sure. But that hasn't been lasting. And I've been left hungry, thirsty, wanting more. And it is that Krishna is referring to here. In contrast to that, the happiness that is derived by awakening self-realization, that may seem difficult in the beginning. Maybe you've got to meditate. Maybe you've got to listen to talks about the Gita like this, or in some way illuminate your mind, in some way come to it, and maybe even challenge some of your habits, maybe, challenging habits of addiction, or challenging habits of materialism, or habits of, past ways of living your life. As you challenge those and begin the process of self-realization, you begin to discover happiness in the mode of goodness. I'd like to elaborate on that a little bit more. Happiness in the mode of goodness refers really to a different quality of happiness. One that, so let's say being in nature is one kind of happiness, but being in the city is another kind. The city, it's all go, passion, drive, and achievement, and all of that. But or survival, whichever way you look at it. But in nature, it's more peaceful, more calm. But when we talk of awakening self-realization, that is about going even deeper. It is about being able to find the presence of happiness within you, a happiness that arises for no reason at all, that has no cause, like nothing has happened, but I'm feeling wonderful. That quality of happiness. Happiness which arises from within, not from without. It could be there is something outside that you connect with, but the feeling arises deeply from here. There is no actual cause. It could be just the wind blowing. It could be just a sun. It could be a sunset, a sunrise, something like that in nature. It could be the sight of a person or an animal. But it's not about that. It is that there is something within you that is radiating happiness. That's the difference. One is trying to get it from the outer world, trying to get happiness, and the other is about generating, radiating happiness. Two different things altogether. The same applies to love. We try to get love from outside, from the outer world, and we often find ourselves disappointed. We try to find some ideal person. We try to find ourselves something that seems wonderful, but inevitably disappoints us. But on the other hand, when you discover that within you is a fountainhead of love, is a source of love, all these things that we've been looking for, happiness, love, peace, wisdom, everything we've been seeking was already here. It wasn't out there. And the more we begin to realize this, the more we awaken to self-realization. We realize that the self is what I've been looking for all along. That within the self lies everything. It is the treasure house within which lies everything you've ever been seeking. The doors of this treasure house are guarded very fiercely by the mind. It's a bit of a trick here. The very mind that is out there looking for all this stuff to please us, to make us feel good, is also guarding and blocking the access, the entryway to the treasure house of the self. And that is why self-realization is a process. It is not just something you can just say, oh, I'll snap my fingers, I'm going to go out and buy something wonderful, and that's going to make me self-realized. Oh no, that just doesn't work that way. It requires very diligent practice to be able to quiet the mind, to break the addiction to our thoughts, to break the attachment to our thoughts, to begin to realize that our thoughts are not truths. What we think is not real, no matter how logical it might seem, no matter how convinced you are about it, no matter how much you believe it to be true. That which you believe doesn't make it true. Belief is a very dangerous thing. Belief, that's why religion has been all about belief, right? And because it's been about belief, people have been able to manipulate others who believed. It's a really tricky thing, because when you get people to believe something, now they begin to believe all things. They begin to believe anyone who comes along and gives them a great story and convinces them. Maybe it's a sob story, and maybe it's a it's a rags to riches story, and tells them, you can have all the wealth in the world you want, or all the whatever you want. And they fall for it. They fall for it. Whether it's in the name of spirituality, or in the name of religion, or in the name of some con person coming along, or politics for that matter. But in all of them, this tendency to believe is the root cause of the problem. What do we do instead? If we're not going to believe our mind, if we're not going to believe others, what do? If you'll notice here, at no point has Krishna talked about believing. Never. Never. The term used here is awakening to self-realization. Realization is like this aha moment that we sometimes have. You realize something. Oh my goodness. Gosh. I see now. It's this moment of being able to see that which you could not see before. It's a moment of waking up. Now, it's not just intellectual, it's actually more experiential. One of the key things that I've been introducing people to within spirituality is this. I'll take you through a little, if you wonder what is the process. One of the processes created to help you get to this place of self-realization is the process of elimination, where you say neti, 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 na iti, na iti, na iti, which means not this, not this, not this. So let me lead you through that. You ask yourself, who am I? And before we get to the who am I part, let's start a preamble to, or preliminary to that. Who am I not? So am I or am I not my body? Think for yourself. I have a body, but am I or am I not my body? Did I exist before my body? Will I exist after my body? My body has kept changing every 7 years. It's kept developing into a different, all the cells have changed. I've gone from being a little infant. I no longer have that body. I no longer have the body of a youth or an adolescent or a teenager or any of that. My body has completely changed and is continuing to change. It looks more or less the same. It has the same DNA in it, but it is intrinsically different. So, am I my body? Think for yourself. Am I my mind? My mind has kept changing too. It's constantly in change. You may get stuck with some ideas and thoughts and beliefs, but for the most part, the mind is constantly changing. And as we get older, we even begin to lose the faculties of the mind. You see people going through dementia or going through so many other, or even this during their lifetime, depression and anxiety and so many things that people go through. Are you your mind? Are you your thoughts? Are you your life experience? Your story, as we say? Or are those things that happened? They happened to you. You have a mind, you have a body, things happened to you, but you're still the subject. That all of that is still the object. What is the subject? If you peel away all of these things, then what remains is the self. That's the beginning. So you begin with who am I? Now, how do you know? You cannot go into self-realization just by knowing this fact that I am a soul. You must experience it. So how do you do that? All right. You can practice this over the course of this next week. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and feel that place of calm within you. Once you're able to access that and feel that, start noticing its qualities. Right? Don't go by some information you have based on some book you've read or some knowledge or something I've even told you. It doesn't matter. Don't forget about all that. Experience it for yourself. And once you've experienced it, as you experience it, you could write it down. Then go close your eyes again. Feel it some more. Then write down again. What is the quality of the real of myself? The more you get to know you, So initially you might say, oh, this self here is peaceful. And you say, but where's this peace? So when you close your eyes, you take a few deep breaths, you notice it's peaceful inside. And you say, where is this peace coming from? There's something in you that is radiating an energy of peace. Oh, okay. What else is it? What else can I find out about it? Become curious to find out, what is it that lies within you? What is it that you are? What is the use of knowing the whole world if you do not know who you are? Right? We know so many things, but we do not know ourselves. We know even our personality, our qualities, our attributes, the things we like and dislike, but we do not know the self. So take time to feel it, experience it, and even journal and write about it. The more you experience it, then what will happen from that is your mind will start to become aware that there is something else here. And it's very tangible and very real. See, one of the things that intellectual stuff doesn't help with, and affirmations don't help, and all the talk in the world doesn't help, is because your mind wants evidence. Your mind wants proof. So I could believe in a God or a soul or something like that, but if I have proof, if I have evidence, then my mind has a different kind of understanding or a different kind of faith or a different kind of belief that is not based on supposition or assumption. It is based on experience. There is a reality, a realization that begins to arise. And that is very significant. So continue doing this, not just for a week, but for the rest of your life. Become more and more and more aware of this. And as you become aware of this part of you, as you understand its feel and experience its qualities, begin to live from this place. Begin to act from here. If you notice this part of you is gentle and kind, then start to exhibit those qualities. Rely on your inner self to do the talking, to do the living, to do the experiencing of life. And you will find your life changes drastically. It will not be the life your mind created or the society created or your conditioning. It is the life that lies within you that will begin to experience, and it is a whole change of how one experiences life. Someone has any questions before I go on? I'd love to hear from you. Nothing? All right.
I do have a question, Rohit. Why then is that poison to begin with? Because you began with talking about it's poison to begin with, but then it's good, right?
Right.
Why is this poison?
So the contrast is being made between nectar and poison, right? Poison is something we don't want. Something is something that we abhor, something that will harm us, something that feels awful, something that is going to be destructive. So sometimes when you do something in the beginning, it feels very painful, right? And it could be learning a skill, like riding a bicycle and falling down. But the path of the real spiritual path can even be sometimes more difficult than that. There are people, I remember in my spiritual journey, we used to, when I was a monk, we would get up at 3 a.m, sleep at say about 9 or 8 and get up at 3 a.m. and meditate and chant for 2 hours every morning. And that was the practice. It wasn't easy to do or get used to. It took a while. But you figured, if this is what I got to do, this is what I got to do. I will tell you that. And then there are people I know who go for programs like Vipassana, where they're in 7 days in silence. They don't talk at all. They're just in meditation and silence. These kind of practices can feel like poison. They can feel like, what the hell am I doing here? Why am I undergoing all kinds of austerity and difficulty like this when the world is there for me to enjoy? So The contrast is this: one feels like poison in the beginning but turns to nectar. The world feels like nectar in the beginning and turns to poison. That's what he's trying to get at. I know the metaphor can be a little, where the word poison can feel a little extreme, but I think it's there to kind of evoke a certain feeling or emotion within us, or maybe perhaps show a certain contrast. The next verse here, if I can get to it, is, and that happiness which is derived, I'm sorry, I got the wrong one here. And that happiness which is blind to self-realization, which is delusion from beginning to end, and which arises from sleep, laziness, and illusion, is said to be of the nature of ignorance. So in other words, for example, happiness that is derived from, say, being addicted to a drug, or from overeating or indulging in things that just aren't beneficial for your health or your well-being, but you still want to do it anyway. All right, well, that's what he's calling happiness in the it's not really happiness, it's a mode of ignorance. And it only takes you downhill. It doesn't elevate you, it degrades you. So there are many people engaged in different pursuits that degrade them, that they're not necessarily coming to a better place as a better person or a better human being. They're just engaging in activities that ultimately do not raise their consciousness. They're not even aware of such a thing as raising your consciousness. They don't even care about it, for that matter. It's like, if it feels good, do it. No, not everything that feels good should be done. It might feel good to eat an animal, or it might feel good to drink excessively or whatever, but those things can only harm us. They will harm our body, they will harm our mind, they will harm our consciousness. We need to be aware of that. Not all that feels good is good. It's a popular saying, though. It's been around a long time. There is no being existing either here or among the devas, the demigods, in the higher planetary system, who is free from the three modes of material nature. So yeah, these three modes of material nature that he's describing are the way we interact with nature, and then the outcome of that, how it feels, how it affects our consciousness from the way that we interact with the modes of nature. I'm going to take a moment and see what we have in the chat here. We have a lovely little message from Vibha. Enlightenment comes from suffering, she writes. Siddhartha Gautam experienced suffering to become the enlightened Buddha. Okay, thank you, Vibha. Yes, suffering, so this is a whole other topic, but it's very related, very connected here. A lot of times we think that suffering is actually bad. We go through a lot of difficulties in this world. There is so much of pain. And a lot of people ask, if God is a loving God, if God cares about us, if God has, we are his creation, why does he let us suffer? And it seems like such a logical and good question, right? Why does God let us suffer? Why are there these wars in this world? Why are people suffering? Why is there hunger and thirst and so on? We should be living happily ever after. We should be peaceful, and everything should be good. There should be land of milk and honey, right? That's what we want. So why is it not so? Well, there's actually an incredible reason behind it. And that is that we are here. This is firstly not our home. And that's a really important piece to understand. This is not our home. We are here for a certain experience. And that experience is meant to either elevate or degrade us. It is up to us. We are the makers of that experience. What that means is that the experiences we're having here are all based on choices that we will make. The choices we make in the course of this life will determine how we experience it. What you call suffering, what is suffering for the average person, is taken by an enlightened person and seen as bliss. So for example, there are people like Buddha who would not eat fasting for days, maybe weeks, maybe months. There are people, they would go through celibacy, they would go through austerities, but they would experience such intense bliss that what the average person would call suffering was indeed incredible pleasure for them. So it's not this idea that, we've been sent here to suffer. No, we've been sent here to figure out who we are. Through all of this, we've been given all these choices. Do anything you want, have anything you want, be anything you want. When you've tried it all, then you might begin asking the question, why am I suffering? And maybe you'll meet somebody at that time who says to you, hey, the reason you're suffering is because that which you want isn't out there. You cannot squeeze water out of a rock, right? You cannot. Or you have to go to where the well is, or the lake is, or the river is, then you get water from there. Similarly, if you want happiness, if you want love, if you want peace, you must find it here, within you. That's where it comes from, and that's where it belongs. Otherwise, all your search is a search of futility. So, to clarify something I've said many times before, does it mean now, I should only focus on the self and meditate and, do all of that stuff and maybe become a monk or a celibate and I should not enjoy the world? Absolutely not. This should be your foundation. This should be your home. This should be the place where you turn to for happiness, for love, for peace, for everything that you wish in your life. And the world now is your plaything. It is where you go to play. By all means, know the difference between reality and illusion. The real happiness is here. The illusory happiness is there. Enjoy the illusion. There's nothing wrong in that. But don't expect it to give you what it cannot give you. Don't expect a movie to take care of your life, right? Because the movie ended with a happily ever after, doesn't mean your life is going to become, as you walk out of the movie theater, doesn't mean that your life is suddenly going to change into a happily ever after, right? That's the illusion. That's the story. The reality is what you come home to. So the reality for each of us is the reality of who I am. And if I haven't addressed this, I'm disconnected from it, then how can I expect my life to be okay? It won't be. I'll be worried about things. I'll be anxious about things. I'll be stressed about things because I haven't got a foundation. I am think of a cork or a bottle that is on an ocean that is being tossed up and down, or a tiny little boat being tossed up and down by every little wave. Now compare that to a big ship that is sailing on the ocean. So I'm saying to you, be the ship, not the bottle on the ocean. Be that giant cruise liner that is going through this, it is not affected by the waves. Suffering is the result of being disconnected from who you are. Being in touch with who you are makes you able to walk through the challenges of life without being affected by them. Now, to the degree that you are affected, I can't say I'm not affected. I do get affected, but I know there's been a huge change from where I started to now. The world is less and less impactful, but you must challenge yourself. You must put yourself in difficult situations. We've become a bunch of indulgent people, is the term that I would like to use, because we like comforts. We like ease. We like things that are smooth sailing and, pleasurable. It's very addictive and captivating. However, it makes us lazy and indulgent. We are no longer able to withstand the stresses of life. So just as a runner pushes themselves to get more and more stamina and more endurance, we need to keep challenging ourselves in life to take on whatever life throws at us, whatever challenges it throws at us. Yes, take it on. Instead of avoiding, instead of escaping, which is what you see a lot of happening when people get into a lot of the addictions and drugs and marijuana becoming legalized. Now everyone's sort of like, it's become more and more of escaping from what life's offering you. A lot of people don't want to be in relationships. Why? Because it's a lot of work. It's difficult. But that's where the growth happens. Where those challenges are, that's where the growth happens. And it is that growth that we've come to. But then take it on. Oh, I'm feeling jealous. Well, take it on. Oh, I'm feeling angry. Take it on. What does it mean? How do I overcome this? How do I rise beyond it? And only when you challenge yourself to higher levels will you find yourself making progress in the course of life. The next verse Krishna says here is, Brahmins, Shatrias, Vaishyas, and Shudras are distinguished by their quality of work, chastiser of the enemy, in accordance with the modes of nature. So one of the big downfalls of the Vedic civilization, the culture that was very prevalent in India and in fact in all the regions around India, was the rise of what people now call the caste system. There was no such thing. Krishna actually says, he says, I originated this system. Chatur varna maya srishtham guna karma vibhagasa. He says, I divided society into 4 parts. The Brahmins, the priests, the Shatrias or warriors, the Vaishyas or the business people, and the Shudras or the laborers or workers, working class. And into 4 stages of life. The stage of brahmachari, where one is a student, the first 25 years of life. The second 25 as a grihastha or a family person. The next 25 years from 50 to 75 when you're as a vanaprastha or a person who now pursues spirituality as the main goal of their life. And then finally, well, now at that stage you're sort of in between. You're partly in the world, but partly now starting to devote yourself to your spiritual practice. And then finally, in the last years of life, to become totally dedicated to your spiritual practice. So he says, this is how I've constructed life. The as far as the occupations go, which I mentioned to you, the Brahmins or priests and the Vaishyas and so on, that was based on guna karma vibhagasha. The vibhag, the division, was based on guna, the qualities, and karma, the actions of a person. In other words, we would say it these days as well, your aptitude and your actual actions determine what you should be doing in your life. That's pretty common sense stuff. But then people twisted these words, didn't teach them to the common average person, firstly withheld the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, which is now you're receiving so freely, but it was withheld for thousands of years. And then the priestly class began to teach a doctrine that was about birth. If you were born in the family of a Brahmin or a priest, and Brahmins were very highly looked up to, the priestly class, then you were considered a Brahmin. If you were born in a Kshatriya family, a warrior's family, a ruler or administrative politicians and all of that would be Kshatriyas, then you were a Kshatriya. If you're born in that family, then that's what you are. And that led to, imagine someone, like just because you're born the son or daughter of Bill Gates, therefore you shall be the chairman of, let's say, Microsoft or some company like that, or for Apple or whatever. Just because you are born in that family or you are born of that caste, therefore you are immediately eligible, regardless of your aptitude, regardless of your actions. That led to a complete downfall of the civilization. It led to a complete weakening of the social fabric. And therefore, India became very susceptible to invaders. It's exactly what happened. Then there was the Mughals who attacked, and after that, the British who attacked. It was just a complete mess. Started from this, but Krishna is saying it once again here. The Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras are distinguished by their qualities of work in accordance with the modes of nature. So even those qualities of work, then they're looked at through the lens of the modes of nature, your level of consciousness. Are you in the mode of goodness, which is where the Brahmins are, the mode of passion, which is where the warriors and even the business people are? Or are you in the mode of ignorance? Those also affect the kind of work that you would be doing. Any questions? Anyone have anything? When you want to write it down, you can, or come on and bring up your questions. I'd love to hear from you. All right, now he goes on to give some again, he keeps bringing up the qualities of a person. In this case, he now begins to talk about the qualities of the 4 different types of occupation. So we've heard of the Brahmins or the priestly class. It was not about simply going to some seminary or something like that, or going to some school, but rather the priestly class or the Brahmins were recognized by their qualities. Samo dama tapa sauchyam kshantir arjavam evacha jnanam vijnanam astikyam brahma karma swabhavajam. Peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, and religiousness. These were the qualities by which the Brahmins work. So he gives a list of those qualities. This is how you know a person to be a real Brahmin, right? They are peaceful, they're self-controlled, they are austere, means they live a simple life. They are pure in their mind, not some false notions of pure in their thinking, and in not wanting to harm others, in not wanting to, in being generous and tolerant and knowledgeable and wise. Then he goes on to describe the qualities of the Shatrias: heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity, and leadership are the qualities of work for the Shatrias. Shatrias, as I said, were the administrators, the warriors, that entire group of people, that sort of the leaders of society in that sense. Farming, cow protection, and business are the qualities of work for the Vaishyas, and for Shudras there is labor and service to others. Notice how cow protection is brought up in here. Krishna was a great advocate of cow protection. In today's time, people eat the cow. It was considered the most heinous and sinful of acts was to kill the cow. I took some beautiful videos of cows in India, and not sure if I can show those to you right now, but but it is such an incredibly beautiful animal, so loving, so sweet, so kind, and people are disconnected from that reality, do not take the time to spend, really be with these animals, and instead kill them and eat them. It's really horrible. If you have never if you are a person that eats meat, take the time to connect with these animals. And if you can even take yourself further, challenge yourself further, go to a slaughterhouse, see what it's like, see what happens. Then ask yourself if this is something you want to partake of or support. To me, it's, I mean, I grew up in a family that ate meat, and at the age of 20 when I became a monk, and since that time, I've been absolutely vegetarian. So I know that it has helped my consciousness tremendously. I would say it's one of the biggest factors that has helped me have a more quiet and peaceful mind. I know that people who engage in eating meat tend to be more agitated, more aggressive, more inclined towards to being angry, to being because it brings up the adrenaline in certain ways. And besides, the animal that you're eating also has gone through very highly exaggerated experience of fear because they're about to be killed. So that fear, that adrenaline that is going through their body, those chemicals that are being exuded by the body are in the meat, are in their body, and it is there when you eat it. So it passes on to the person who eats it. It affects your consciousness. And so Krishna here talks about farming and cow protection. These are the qualities, and of course business are the qualities of work for the Vaishyas, or the business class. And for the Shudras, there is labor and service to others. By following his qualities of work, every person can become perfect. Now please hear from me how this can be done. Yeah. Once again, are there any questions? If there's anything you'd like to ask, if there's anything you want clarity on, or agree with, disagree with, believe in, disbelieve, whatever, you want to share anything, let me know. By worship of the Lord, or by worship of God, who is the source of all beings and who is all-pervading, man can, in the performance of his own duty, attain perfection. So it's not just in doing your duty, not just in doing your dharma, but by also engaging in worship of God, who is the source of all beings. What does worship look like? Many ways. There's many ways in which it's done. There are temples where you'll see beautifully dressed deities, and they're being worshipped with incense and flowers and garlands and all of that. And that is worship. But worship can also be in the things you do, to do those things as a contribution, as an offering to humanity, to society. Because just simply going into a place of, let's say, a temple or someplace and worshiping there, but then coming out and being all about exploiting others and cheating and taking advantage of people, that's not worship now. You've relegated your worship just to a particular place. Worship has to be everywhere. Everything, every thought, every action, everything we do needs to be worship. The way we treat others, from the lowest to the highest. It's not just that we're sitting there in awe of somebody who's wealthy and treating them nicely while we treat this, let's say, the server in a restaurant, pathetically. No. Or the homeless person, for that matter. It's treating each person with love and compassion. It's realizing that we're all the same. Perhaps we're in different bodies and in different circumstances and experiencing different challenges in our life, different life lessons. But at the core, we're all the same, every single one of us. And therefore, if you're going to engage in worship, then worship should be of not only the Creator, but also the creation of all the not only of that which is the source of all beings, but also of those beings themselves. Right? There was a saying I'd heard: "Love me, love my dog." So I think that as we serve others, as we serve people, animals, take care of the world itself, the planet, we serve God by doing that. And then, of course, we can also go to temples and even churches or wherever else you like to go and worship. Yeah, it's great. I like to go everywhere. It is better to engage in one's own occupation, and even though one may perform it imperfectly, than to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly. Prescribed duties according to one's nature are never affected by karma or sinful reactions. So, meaning that whatever is your calling in life, do that full out. Do it wholeheartedly. Not just for the money, but do it for, I tell you, the best quality of a business, the best quality of a service, whether you're in the service industry, whether you're a business person, doesn't matter. If you are there giving quality to others, that's when there is no, there's no karma involved in that. But when you're there exploiting people, you just want to take advantage of them. You just, you don't care about them. You're there, let's say you're in a serving thing and you're like complaining about all the people who come, who you serve. Some of you work in a hospital, and if you're always complaining about the people who you're serving there, or if you're in a restaurant, you complain about people, then that sets out an energy that is you're creating a negative karma right there. It is very important that we realize we're here to serve each other, to serve humanity, and through humanity, God. See in every being, in every creature, God. In everything, everywhere you go, there is God. And the more you see that, the more you'll realize that you're here to be engaged in seva. That is the word we use. Seva means service. Serving is worshipping. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, the Jivera Swarup Hoy Nitya Krishna Das. We are all, our Swarup, our original nature is that we are eternally servants of Krishna, servants of God. And that service is not some mundane thing that is looked down upon. No. To serve is just as you serve your beloved. You make something wonderful for someone who you love, whether that's your child or your parent or your lover. You make something wonderful. You do something for them. Acts of service like that. They are the way to reach God. Jivera Swarupa Nitya Krishna Das. We are eternally servants of God. And we serve God not only through places like temples and churches and mosques, whatever else, but we also serve God by serving all of humanity and all of creation, by taking care of this world, by not turning it into a garbage dump, which is what's happening now, right? As we mess it up. But that's the way humanity is going now. It's a very sad story. All right, I'm thinking we'll bring this to a close. I want to give one last chance to anyone who'd like to ask any questions. See if you've had any thoughts or realizations. Maybe you got something to share. I'd love to hear that. Anyone at all? We've got quite a few people here.
Well, I'll just say that earlier when you spoke about our Constitution, it's actually life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Did I not say that?
No, you said it's the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. And I just,
Okay.
I'm only mentioning it because happiness is the thing that you pursue, because it's just so unattainable.
Right.
you could have life and you could have liberty, but happiness?
But even life and liberty, think about it. I mean, how much life do we have? We have a few years. No matter how much you pursue it, it doesn't get, you can't extend that, right? And liberty, yeah, we call ourselves the land of the free, but how free are we? How
Not
free
very.
are we? Yeah, we're not very free. We're being controlled, we're being governed, we're being told what to do, what not to do. And if some of us start to do what you're supposed to do, they tell you you're sheep, and if you don't do what you do, then you're a rebel. We have all these double standards. But real freedom is not only political freedom. It's a wonderful thing that we are free and that we are not, for example, slaves, or that we're not being in a communist state where we are forced to do things by the government. But real freedom, if you want to go to the ultimate levels of freedom, is freedom that arises in the mind. To be free here, that is the ultimate freedom, right? So it's really important that we begin to see that all the things we're seeking, freedom, happiness, all of that, they're here within us.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, though. I thought I was getting it somewhere wrong, so thanks for the correction. Did I get it right? The pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness, right?
It's just happiness.
Oh, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Which I still love, because I think you can argue all of that, and you're right, but I just think that it's just really suggesting, I don't know, that happiness is just, it's a pursuit. It's not attainable.
It's almost like this ephemeral thing, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Reminds me of a dog chasing its tail. It's never quite able to grab it.
Right.
Or a mirage in the desert. You never quite get there. You think you're there, you're almost there. Like, finally I can relax and I can enjoy my life and everything's going to be beautiful from here on. And then something else comes up. Right? Something breaks down or something stops working, and suddenly you're back to dealing with all of that.
Yeah.
So it really is an endless pursuit, because the world wasn't designed for that. The world was designed to be chaotic, was designed to be a source of all kinds of challenges. Just how it was designed. We long for something else because we come from somewhere else. We long for this life of abundance, this life of joy and pleasure and fun and wonderful things, because we come from a world where that was so. And now we come here and like, this whole damn thing feels like a struggle. It's so much hard work. Trying to just keep, a house running is hard work. Trying to take care of a family is hard work. Trying to take care of a job is hard work, right? Taking care of the body is hard work. You got to exercise. You got to cook. You got to eat. It's like so much work for everything. So, but we come from a world where, from places beyond this material world, where that wasn't the case. And so there is a longing in our heart for that. There is a longing in our heart for peace, for love, for happiness, for abundance, for ease, for flow. Because that's where we come from, and that's who we are. And that's what the source of all is. So the reason we encourage you to really look within yourself and experience the self is because from the self you begin to experience where you came from. You begin to experience who you came from, or God. This gives you the indicator. It's like, I taste a drop of water, and now from the ocean, now I know what the ocean tastes like. I have a clue. I have an idea. Up till now I was hearing about it, but now I've tasted it. Now I know something very concrete. So in much the same way, I encourage you, find yourself. There is nothing greater. in the world. In the world, yeah. And through yourself you will find God. All right, have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next week as we continue this journey. Thank you.
Thanks, Rohit.
Take care. Good night.
Thank you.